Anthony Melchiori, so great to see you today. I missed you yesterday.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Broken. I know.
I took a not day. I not do anything.
I told everybody how you were on assignment. Let's get going.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey, everybody. Of course, you know I'm Glenn Hausman with the incredible Anthony Melchiori, as always. Anthony, so great to see you. I'm so glad you took a not day yesterday. How did that enrich your soul?
I'll tell you off camera. It was good. It was good. But I have a new favorite person. His name's not Glenn Hausman.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to say a name. Let's see if you know who she is.
Okay.
Amanda Gorman.
I feel like I know her.
Okay.
No, for sure. Now I'm embarrassed.
She is the most impressive young person I've had the pleasure of watching yesterday. She was the young lady who did the
yeah. That's why I know her.
Then there was a follow-up interview with her.
Mm-hmm.
The interview was more impressive than the poem.
Really?
Oh my God. You know when you just meet that person once in a lifetime?
Mm-hmm.
Like that just they got it. They just have it.
Mm-hmm.
She's got it. Whatever it is, she's got it. So if you haven't watched her, if you didn't see the poem, if you didn't see the interview, that young lady is going to be she's an angel on earth. She's gonna be a superstar. She is a superstar. 22 years old, more poised than I'll ever be.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. That poem was absolutely riveting. I loved it. What a day yesterday. And speaking of amazing things, how about that bestbuy.com/hospitality? Make sure you check them out. Don't forget to do that. Why? Because they've got sanitizing solutions, patio furniture. They can even help you with your IT consulting. And don't get me started on that Geek Squad. Check out bestbuy.com/hospitality. Now, Anthony, I also wanted to mention, if you didn't watch yesterday's show out there, check it out. Not only did we have the AHOA CEO and their chairman on the show, but we also had a great interview with Mark Driscoll. He's the GM of the Hamilton Hotel, and Mark was at Ground Zero during the Capitol riots, and we talked to him all about what his experience was like being a hotelier during that very dangerous time, as well as what the experience has been like.
I got to go back and listen to it myself. Did he have a lot of those rioters in his hotel staying there?
He had. I don't know if he had rioters specifically in there. It's not like that they wore name tags like I just stormed the Capitol, but he did have a lot. He did have a lot of supporters that were, for the rally part of it that stayed with him. Interesting observation he made is he's just glad that everybody was kind of unified on the same side, because he could only imagine what would have happened if he had people from both points of views clashing in his lobby. So we didn't have to deal with that. Also, Anthony, we made good friends with him. So I think we're going to wind up going down to DC and hanging out at his hotel.
Let's go, man.
Yeah. All right. Anything on your mind today before we get going, sir?
There's not a lot on my mind, even when I have a lot on my mind. There's not much room for it.
All right, everybody. If you haven't checked out my appearance on the Crisis Averted podcast, available on iTunes and all that good stuff, find that, where I reveal way too much about myself.
What's the name of it?
The Crisis Averted podcast.
Oh, it sounded like you said gross and perverted.
No, I'm actually going to be on that one this weekend. All right. And don't forget, Sunday at 7:45, I'll be on BT Talks Baseball. That's available at 365sportscast.com, 365sportcast.com. My buddy Brett Topel does a show starting at 7 p.m. I'll be on at 7:45 talking about St. Louis, great places to eat, great places to hang out. Anthony, I'm excited because we're going to talk to a couple of great people today, a few great people today. Should we get going with it?
Let's go.
All right. Joining us back on the show, Mr. Thomas Penny at Donahoe. Then we have Dr. Miranda Kittleman Lynch from FIU, where the full title includes Coca-Cola Fellow. I already forgot right now. What's the full title? Miranda, we don't have to forget you. Miranda, what's the full title? There we go.
Associate Professor in Coca-Cola Endowed.
Endowed Professor. I've always wanted to be an endowed professor. But Leon Great to see you too, Leon Thomas. He does Leon the Trainer, and he actually came to me today with this subject idea, Anthony. And I was really interested in this because we've done a lot of shows here on diversity and trying to get the the entire hospitality industry to lift each other up. But what about the whole notion of helping people that have similar backgrounds to you to help them up? Are we doing enough to help our own kind, or are we not doing that?
But before we go into that conversation, can I ask everybody if you've seen that young lady Amanda Gorman? I'd like your opinion on her. She literally, like, I couldn't breathe. Like I couldn't. I was crying. I was like, I was just completely stunned by not the poem. The poem was amazing. Her performance was insane, but her interview later was just like, is this woman 40 or is she 22? What do you guys think of it?
Thomas?
I thought she was phenomenal. I thought she had given the best message of the day yesterday by far. She connected to history, the poise she showed, her words were profound. I was incredibly proud of her. She's a superstar.
Yeah, superstar. What did you guys think?
Professor?
Just simply amazing. I was incredibly moved by the whole day, but especially by her part in it. Definitely not a dry eye.
Excellent. Leon?
Yeah, she was just amazing and so poised and polished. And to be that age, I thought she was much older. And then to watch the interview later, I was just crazy, super impressed with her. She is a superstar.
Someone said something that's like, well, there's many more young people, whether it be African-American or white, like her out there. We got to find them. And I agree with that. There's a lot of talented from any community. However, I've got to say, she's one in a million. I don't care what color her skin. I don't care where she comes from. She's one in a million. When you see someone, you just name a superstar. You just know as soon as they walk in the room, they're different. They're just different.
Anthony, she's like in the same category as like Malala and Greta, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it has nothing to do with the color of your skin. She was just an extraordinary young, and then how she presented herself. It was just really a moment that I'll never forget, just listening to that interview and listening to how she handled herself under that pressure. Think about what she's dealing with. She walked up there, she did that poem like, here, hold my Coke. I'll be over here if you need anything. And you got off, just like dropped the mic and said, all right, I'll see you later. And she said something in the interview I found fascinating. They asked her about, where did you get your inspiration from? You look at artwork. She goes, I'm not a visual person. I look at words. And I went on social media. I went on Twitter. I went on all these social media platforms. I wanted to see what people were saying. And I took those words and I made them my own because several of them really stood out to me. And like I said, I can count on one hand how many times I was stopped in my tracks in my life from a human being, and she stopped me in my tracks. So I just thought we should mention her. I thought she was just extraordinary.
And let me mention how awesome her outfit was. I love that she could pull off such bright yellow and red like that. I could never do something like that. Absolutely incredible.
You pull off the button shirt really well, though.
Yes.
So is Leon.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I was going to leave it unbuttoned, but then I saw Leon had it buttoned, and I'm like, all right, pressure's on. I better button up here. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about diversity. We try very hard to do that at least once a month here. It's really essential for us to get the industry moving forward, to make sure that everybody.
Hold on. I'm going to interrupt you. I have to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Sir. We don't talk about once a month. Okay. We talk about it every day, and we try to talk about it. We incorporated. So yeah, maybe we have a show specifically subject diversity, but it's been. So I just wanted to make that note.
Okay, yeah, like on Tuesday, for example, that wasn't our topic, but it came up in the context of the conversation. So thank you, Anthony. So I'm going to go to Leon to start this conversation off because you brought up this idea. Leon, you approached me. You said there aren't enough African Americans helping enough African Americans. Why don't you tell that story for our audience, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this subject up because it's something that it's a conversation that needs to be had, but folks ignore it or are afraid to have the discussion. What we discussed was why aren't African Americans that are in ownership positions, why aren't they hiring black general managers? Now, the context of that is I worked in the hotel business for 35 years. Most of my time was spent with a management company called Vista Host. Vista Host is out of Houston, Texas. And I started as a line level employee with them and became a general manager and then someone that went around and did task force work with that company. And I asked the owner of the company, his name was Michael Harrell. I asked him, I said, Mr. Harrell, we're at this conference for Hilton or Marriott or whatever brand it was, and I said, I don't see any black managers. Where are the black managers? And his response was, Leon, we will see black managers once there are black owners. And I said, oh, okay, great. I don't know any black owners. I don't see any black owners either. And many organizations now have pushed the idea of black ownership, black hotel ownership, and I applaud them for that. But when I look at the managers of the hotels that are owned by black individuals, I still don't see many black managers. And so I approached you with just that question. What's it going to take for us to have black managers? We said that once we started owning hotels, we would manage hotels, and we still just don't see the numbers where they should be, where we would expect them to be. And so, then if the black owners aren't hiring black managers, and we know that traditionally the brands that manage properties and some management companies, many management companies aren't, what's it take? Where are the black managers?
Right. So interesting topic. And Thomas, I should let you know that I am not at your Cambria Suites in DC there today. If you could take a good look over there. And now we had Thomas Penn on the show because of Donahoe Hospitality Services, which is a great company out of the DC area. And one of the topics that we talked about, Thomas, was how you've made a considered effort to try to create a very diverse team, people of different backgrounds, colors, religions, all of that kind of stuff. But you had to make a concerted effort in it. Maybe you could give our viewers who missed that last show a quick rundown on what your approach is.
So one, thank you for the invitation to come back on. And Leo, thank you for putting forth this critical question. Organizationally, what we started to do over 20 years ago was, in essence, we were founding members of a high school that was started in DC for the purpose of preparing young people from DC for positions in the hospitality business. We then went and raised over $1 million for scholarships to send them to college such that they can come back and work in positions of leadership in our company. Here it is 20 years later, we have quite a few of those folks working in our business in positions of leadership. But more than that, in essence, because of my experience of growing up in DC and I think Congressman Clyburn says that we're the sum total of our direct experience. Because of my experience of growing up in DC, I was able to be intentional about making certain that folks that grew up in the city have opportunities. Within our company right now, we have 2 African-American females over 2 of our more consequential hotels. As a matter of fact, our second largest hotel is being operated by an African-American female, and we just promoted an African-American female to take over our largest hotel and the one that generates the most revenue. She transitions into her role on February 1st. She was an AGM at the hotel, and she transitions as general manager on February 1st. And so, in essence, what we try to do is introduce them early, continue to mentor and sponsor them as they come into the organization and expose them, and then follow them through such that as they perform, we reward them for that performance. And so it's served us well. I've been in the hotel business over 20 years in DC. A large percentage of African-American hotel general managers has been in our organization for the past 20 years.
Right.
And so, I've been advocating that we see a larger representation. I've had conversations with folks about it. And again, there are some folks that are aggressively pushing it, just not enough.
Right. So, Anthony, I know you're going to have some quick questions, but I want to hear what the good doctor has to say. Doctor, Leon brings up a good point, and it seems to me that Thomas in his company is the exception to the rule. How do you see the landscape out there? What's your point of view on the situation?
I really couldn't speak to if people are helping people enough. But what I can say is what I'm hearing from my students, that they're very frustrated that they're simply not seeing people that look like them in these positions. So I love to hear that Thomas is doing this, because I think mentorship and sponsorship really is the key. I think it's really easy to get intimidated as a hospitality student when you aspire to be a hotel GM, for example, but you're not seeing any other hotel GMs of color around you.
Right. Absolutely. Anthony?
Yeah, I just think it starts like a lot of things started in our country. We've got to start with putting one foot in front of the other. And it takes people not only that look like Thomas, but that look like me, making sure that we make an effort to, it's not about, I've seen when you see talent, whatever color, at least where I come from, I've seen people promoted of all different backgrounds. The problem is where, like, we're not introducing how wonderful this career field is to the African-American community. And we need to, whether it be in high school, junior high school, whether it be watching my show, whether it be watching this podcast, like people have got to see that this is a great way of getting into the hospitality industry. To be honest with you, the several African-American young people that I've seen come into the industry were Cornell. They were when I went to Cornell, but they go into finance. They don't go into the operations. So I really think that it's important to really, go and introduce how great this career field is, so we can get from many different backgrounds.
Right.
I would just add, we're fortunate to be in DC. Here in DC, we have the only African-American female of a major hotel REIT in Leslie Hale at RLJ.
Yeah.
We have Ray Bennett, who is president of Marriott franchise for the Americas, and he still has some level of responsibility for the management side of the business. We have several African-American hotel owners here in the DC area. The president of the Hotel Association in DC is African-American male. The president and CEO of the Convention Center in DC is an African-American male. The president and CEO of the Convention and Visitors Bureau in DC is an African-American male. So here in DC, we do have a disproportionate representation to other parts of the country.
Yeah, and is it that we just don't, like, we don't have a lot to choose from? Or is it that there are people, a lot of talented people in different markets, and they're just being overlooked?
I can speak to that. I mean, I think that the politics of DC at one time suggested that if you wanted to engage with the government, there at least needed to be some minority participation. That was something that started in the 80s, and it continues even through this time. And so the politics of the town suggests that you have to have a diverse group of equity partners and a diverse leadership team if you really want to compete and be relevant in the business community here in this particular area. I'm certain that that's not the case everywhere.
Right. Leon?
Yeah. Anthony, you talked about earlier you mentioned, is it from the high schools? Is it that folks aren't aware that this is a great career opportunity, a great career path? And I'll tell you two things that I experienced. I went to a private Catholic all boys high school.
Wow.
And I reached out to that school to be a career day speaker. And they told me, they said, oh, the only jobs you can get in hotels is you're going to be a room attendant. I actually use the term maid. You're going to be a maid, or you're going to work at the front desk.
Wow.
And I said, whoa, time out. No. Listen, I've been in the business. Let me tell you what I've done. And I went to the school and I had to educate the principal and the counselors on the careers
Right.
in the hotel business. I had to do that. Now, the other thing is that once I did that, they were open to having folks talk about hospitality and hotel management as a career path. Now, something else I wanted to bring up is I've heard managers, owners, management companies say, we want to hire Black managers. We just don't know where to find them. Where do we go? What do we do? We can't find anyone. Every time the job's open, we never get anyone that's Black, anyone of color. We don't get any minorities. And my response to that is, how do you find your business? You shake all the bushes. You ask questions. Ask others. Ask, you know, a Black manager. Ask the question. You'll probably find someone. And I think if we combine those two just as a starting point, making sure that students in high school understand that this is a viable career option, and also we start looking for managers, be intentional the way Thomas is in his company. I think that gets us started and moving in the right direction.
You know, Leon, you said two things. One, I want to respond to. It's not only people of color that don't understand that the hospitality industry is a great industry. My daughter, who I thought would be great in the hotel business when she was in high school, I said, hey, how about the hotel business? You know what she said to me? As she's sitting in our yard, in our nice swimming pool, driving our nice car, she goes, you can't make any money in the hotel business.
Oh, wow.
I was like, look around, we're doing okay.
Right.
And that's one of the things about doing the show. It's like people think, and you know what? What's wrong with being a housekeeper? What's wrong with being the front desk? I worked at the front desk. That's how you start.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is it below you to clean rooms? Is it below you to work at the front desk? And,
right.
and again, my daughter, I said, hey, I can get you a job in the hotel. And she's like, in the summer, and she's like, well, what? I said, maybe in housekeeping. She said, I don't want to clean rooms. I was like, I'm out. I was like, why not? She's like, I don't want to clean rooms. So this feeling, this understanding that the industry stops and starts at the bed and at the front desk. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not,
Right. So, doctor, let me throw it to you since Anthony's in freeze mode. It's interesting that he said that. Even his daughter doesn't understand that. But it seems like people don't understand that you can get those jobs, but it seems like the perception is that's it. That's the dead end. There's no way to improve your career, right? What do you tell students? What do you see going on? How do you pull this all together in your world?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think that it's important to remember that it's not just the students that need to be introduced to all the opportunities that hospitality and the hotel industry has to offer. I think it's oftentimes explaining it to their parents as well. Here at FIU, we have many first-time college graduates. And so it's very important to their families that their children are it's important to the guardians rather that the student graduate with something that's going to turn into a great career. Oftentimes when we say hospitality management, the parent immediately thinks housekeeping,
right,
or front desk. They don't know all of the possibilities, and students do get a lot of pressure from their families with regards to the majors and career path they choose.
Right, Thomas, obviously you've done it. What is going on with companies that aren't doing it? What should they be doing? Where is the point of failure here?
Well, I go back to, I think Dr. Miranda hit the nail on the head. Especially for African Americans, there was a time in this country where we were in positions of servitude. And I think for many families, when they think about the industry, they think about it in that context. Especially if their kids are going to college, they say, they think that they don't want to send their kids to college to come out to make beds and flip burgers is kind of their idea of the business. One of the things that we had to do here in DC, we shot a commercial called I Am Hospitality. And in essence, we got executives of color basically to talk about their job and basically give their title. And we had about 5 or 6 folks to do this commercial. It ran on local TV, and it also ran on the local transit posters at the metro stations, and it was quite effective. But until then, folks just had, they didn't have a full perspective of the business. And that comes from what the experience has been in the early part of the 20th century and before.
Wow. So fascinating. Leon, I got to ask you this question, following up on what Thomas said. What an interesting point in regards to the misconceptions of what it is. It seems like when you're talking about the African-American community, they don't want to be associated with that because there's a lot of negative stigma that comes from places that I, as a white man, can't necessarily understand. Can you comment a little bit more on that, please?
Yeah, I'll give you kind of two perspectives on it. My father worked 40 years at the Baltimore-Washington airport as a skycap.
Mm-hmm.
And these were the days where the skycap had to walk the bags to the ticket terminal, to the ticket window inside.
Before they all had heels on them too, I bet, right?
Exactly. Right. And my dad paid cash for me to go to college through his tips from being a skycap.
Yep.
And so in our family, there was no negative attitude toward the job that you did. There wasn't a negative aspect to servitude, right? He was taking care of his family. He first exposed me to the hotel business. He said, you see all these hotels around here? There are folks that manage those hotels, that work in the hotels, that make a lot of money. I see them coming through the airport. Mm-hmm. That's a place you can make a lot of money. And when we're exposed to it, or folks tell us about it, that opens our minds to be more apt to want to do something else. Now, in the business itself, there are folks that probably have the skills and knowledge to do more than they're doing, and for whatever reason, they don't. I started as a bellman, right? And knowing that there's gonna be some opportunity for me, and it worked out. And I think if we can get past the idea that just because you're in this position now, that doesn't mean this is where your career ends. You're going to grow from that. I think that's the first point. And then the second one is that when you're in that position, to tell others, and hopefully someone becomes your sponsor, your mentor, your advocate, that can help you move up the line.
You know,
Right.
Leon, you said something, your father's a sky cap, and I didn't realize until you said it, but my first introduction to the hospitality industry was when I went to Florida when I was 9 years old, and I watched the sky cap as we were in line, and he was making all these tips. And I remember saying to myself as a 9-year-old, I said, I bet you he's rich. Like, I remember saying that to myself. It's like, they're making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually said, maybe one day I'll be a sky cap when I was 9 years old. So, you know, it's that was, and it's a hard job. And I always looked up to the sky caps, and I always thought that was an incredible job. And I just remember being a kid from Brooklyn, especially around Cheapside Bay in the time. It's like, man, that's a good job. And they make cash.
Yeah, cash. That's right.
And before I got cut off with my internet connection, one of the things I was going to say is intentional. You have to be intentional. And one of the things that Glenn and I promised ourselves on the show was we're going to be intentional about this subject. And I think that is so important. Again, in my career, I tried to be intentional, but it is so important. That's how it changes. But you have to be intentional. A lot of people talk about it, and very few people do anything about it.
That's right. We're definitely going to try hard. Thomas, I want to hear from you, but I do want to say, when we first started doing these conversations, I felt a little bit uncomfortable because I didn't understand what my role was in these conversations. But the more we talk about it, the more normalized it is, and the more I realize how important it is for us to continue to do these things. But Thomas, your parents worked in the hospitality business?
Yeah, so my great-grandfather, born in 1898, in the 1950s, worked on a construction site building the first Marriott hotel, the Key Bridge Marriott, right outside of D.C.
Wow.
After the hotel was built, he went on to take a job as a doorman inside the hotel. Worked for a number of years. Years later, my mother and my grandmother were room attendants at a Howard Johnson. And so now, obviously, in my family, it's a source of pride having my great-grandfather have been in the business, my mother having been in the business, grandmother, to what I have accomplished. And every day I come to work, I bring their struggles and their hardships with me, and their sources of inspiration. And I would also say that, in addition to African Americans, there are folks of Latino background that also are not seen enough in the industry. And there are folks that come from parts of the country that are low income that also deserve opportunities. And I just think that we have a responsibility to ensure folks have a runway to really invade the impossible with their experience.
Yeah, and I really think, in going back in my career and looking, I really see that general managers kept housekeepers in housekeeping, right? And they didn't say, "Hey, that housekeeper's great, so let's bring it to the front desk. Let's bring it to food and beverage." What they would say is, "Hey, she's great. Let's make her a supervisor. Oh, she's really good. Let's make her an assistant manager. Oh, she's amazing. Let's make her a director of housekeeping." Okay, and very few times as director of housekeeping, especially back 20 years ago when I was doing it full time, did they become general managers. They became, VP of housekeeping, or they became, regional director of housekeeping. And those are all great jobs, but very rarely would you see them going into a general manager role. I remember having this conversation with a young lady that all the steps I was talking about, she became the number one housekeeper in all New York City. Everybody wanted her managing housekeeping department. But when the general manager job came up and she was actually wanting to interview for it, she was, no, it's like, you're a director of housekeeping. You don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have this. But I was director of front office, and I became a general manager without any other experience except front office experience. So, it's fascinating. We've got to take that stigma out of housekeeping, because the vast majority of housekeeping department is minority.
Right. And non-English speakers as well. So, Doctor, how do we break that cycle? And what are you doing at university to promote the right messaging out there?
So I think it's been said, we need to be mindful in our hiring and mindful in our mentorship and sponsorship as an industry. Excuse me. We have an amazing dean, Michael Chang, and he has taken this diversity initiative and just really run with it. It's one of our top priorities, increasing representation of Black faculty in the classroom, but increasing opportunities for our Black students and bringing in more Black leaders into the classroom so students can see, yes, these are attainable goals for me. One thing that's come across my attention specifically is when we have a referral program. If we have a large organization with only one type of person, for example, oftentimes they're going to refer people from their network that probably look very similar to them. I noticed this in my own classroom. When I was bringing in guest speakers, I subconsciously was bringing in more of one group than another. And once this was pointed out to me, I was able to correct that. And having conversations like this, I think, is going to be important in order to make those corrections moving forward.
Okay, so isn't it interesting now, in just a short period of time, that when you do see a conference, or you do see a group of people standing next to each other and they're all white, it's almost stands out to you now, and it's becoming like abnormal. It's like, whoa, why is there no people of color? Why are there no women? No, so it's now, I'm starting to even see it myself. Whereas maybe 20 years ago, when I saw 7 white guys in a meeting, I never thought twice about it. Right now, I go in and it's like literally, I'm like, what the hell's going on here? It's like, it's standing out to me. It's like there's got to be other people that look different than me that are capable of being in this room. So that's becoming the normal, at least for me and the people I hang out with. That it's weird if you just see people that look like me.
Back when we had conferences in person, I noticed that the financial events, there's a lot more women represented now than there were 10 or 15 years ago, but I'm still not seeing enough people of different cultural, ethnic, and racial backgrounds. Leon, the doctor made a great point about how sometimes we promote people that look like us for things, but you have said exactly the opposite. That's not happening within the African-American community. So why is it then that she does that? I might have done that. Anthony may have inadvertently done that, but people in the African-American community aren't doing that.
I've asked that question. Now, I had my thoughts on that, and I asked the question several times in the last month. I've posted questions on social media that ask that very thing. Why aren't we, us Black people, helping others become managers? Mm-hmm. I asked, do you know Black managers? I'd like to talk to Black managers to ask them about their career path and struggles and things like that, to see what they're doing to help. Now, here's what I found out, that when we talk about this publicly on a social media platform, nobody wants to talk about black managers. That's it's kind of ignored. When I post it, I get text messages, I get emails, I
Mhm.
get private messages that say, I know a black manager, or there's a black manager in my company and he's not helping me. I get all of that, but no one publicly wants to talk about it. Now, here's what happened. I'll tell you a quick story. When I got my first general manager's job with Vista Host, first GM position, the gentleman that was working as a houseman said to me, "How did you move up?" And I said, "People taught me." I had a gentleman that was my biggest advocate, biggest supporter. His name is Mark Zalaznik. Still works for Vista Host, my biggest supporter. And he said, "I want to be a manager." This houseman said, "I want to be a manager." And I said, "Day one, all right, good. I'm going to work with you on that. I want to help you." I think that sometimes, and I've heard others say this, that black managers who want to reach out and help others make it, that they don't receive the support from the owners and their management companies to help them, to encourage them to do that support. If it's being a volunteer on the Chamber of Commerce, there's support for that. But when it's, I need to spend time to help mentor someone, another black person, that's kind of shunned upon, and folks don't want to do it. Those are just some of the things that I've heard, that I've seen out there.
Thomas?
So Leo, I would change that a bit. For me, it's not why don't we? The question is, how can we do it even more? There are folks that are spending a great deal of time and energy to ensure that African Americans and other minorities have a clear path to opportunity. And so the question for me is, how do we get more people thinking that way? But there's a large number of people I know in this region that are really conscious about it and have been really working hard to do that for at least 10 to 20 years. We just need to continue to add more folks underneath the tent that are thinking from that perspective. But there are folks that are consciously focused on making certain that the executive level looks like the housekeeping and food and beverage departments.
Right.
And your company, Thomas, I saw the show that you did with Glenn and Anthony last month.
I feel like
And
that's what precipitated, right?
what's that?
That's what precipitated this.
No, it wasn't that one. It was the conversation with Dr. Velma Trahan.
Right.
Right. And Thomas, you're doing it, and you know others are. And like you say, I'd like to see more people do it. I like to see that embrace the concept of mentoring and advocacy. I'd like to see that done more.
Interesting. Doctor?
No, I absolutely agree. I'm a strong proponent of mentoring and sponsorship. Again, I'm hearing from my students, I don't know if this is an attainable goal because I don't see anyone that looks like me. So the more that we have of that, the better.
And this is a conversation that is critical, and it's important, and it breaks down barriers. I'm going to say something, and it may be, I don't know if it's my place to say it, but if you look 10 years ago, we're in a better place than we were 10 years ago. If you look 20 years ago, we're in a better place than we were 20 years ago. Yes or no? Am I right or wrong when it comes to this subject specifically about hospitality? Yes or no?
I say yes. We are better. Yes.
Nowhere near where we need to be, but are we better? Thomas, where are we?
I mean, without question, we're better. I also think we're more conscious of the need to do even more, but we're absolutely better than we were 20 years ago.
Doctor?
I do not deny that we are better. I do get a little bit nervous when I say, yes, we've done better, because I feel like it may give people an excuse not to work even harder, because we do still have a long ways to go.
Right. So let me ask you all this. One thing we didn't talk about is we have a woman of color as our vice president here in the United States right now. How incredible is that, first of all? And what does that mean to each of you personally and professionally? And do you think it's going to help push things forward in a more meaningful way that perhaps we didn't see when we had President Barack Obama? Leon?
I love it. I was so happy when President Biden, Senator Biden at the time, announced Vice President Harris as his running mate. I was thrilled to see that not only a female, but someone that's Black,
Mhm.
right? And I know she has Asian descent, Indian descent as well. I understand that. But when I look at her, I see a Black lady that's number 2 in command of the country, and I'm just overly proud, overjoyed about that. And I think when others look at her now, it tells us all that things can be accomplished, that we have a chance, that things can get better, and she represents that. And so does, when President Obama was in office, and you combine the two, yes, it's something that we all should look at and say our country is changing, and it's a proud moment for Black people, for all people.
Thomas?
So, I understood the magnitude of the moment first when President Biden selected her, and I came home, and my wife was just crying, and I didn't know what had happened. And she was overwhelmed with emotion at just the thought. And so that really brought it into proper context. And then yesterday I get home and I turn on the TV and I see the Howard University marching band ahead of Vice President Harris as she is coming down Pennsylvania Avenue. And I just thought that this was an amazing moment for our country. It was an amazing moment for women everywhere, of all backgrounds, obviously of African American and Asian descent. But it was just a moment where, in essence, we come away saying tomorrow will be better. And that's what I felt yesterday as I saw things come together.
Right. And that's what's, so powerful. I didn't get lost on me. And I actually got emotional when I saw that, because of where we came from 2 weeks ago and now where we are today. In 2 weeks, that our country is going to get better. Our country is going to prevail. So if you look back at the last, couple of weeks or couple of months, I think it being out there, and I think it being so pervasive, and that we see that our country is split into two, not only from a African American standpoint, but in a lot of different issues. I think somehow that's good. I think it's because it's been hidden for so long, and people didn't talk about it. People didn't really challenge each other on it. So as long as it stays peaceful, as long as it stays, we're going forward, I think it's important.
Right. Doctor, did you want to comment on that? And then I want to go to Thomas.
No, it makes me incredibly optimistic for our future. I cannot tell you how many of our students, our young Black female students, have communicated to me how excited, hopeful, optimistic, and I'm looking forward to this next new world.
Right. Anthony said something about us coming together, and it reminds me of what Amanda Gorman said yesterday in her poem. Our country is not broken. It's just not finished. Right. I think that's kind of the essence of what she said, if not the exact words. Thomas, sir?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I think we also got to do is really focus on bringing people together. There are folks out here who, for one reason or another, they have strong feelings about where we're going, and we got to find a way to bring a portion of them along. And so this is a moment where we really got to come together in a unique way, and we got to do what Albert Einstein said. He talked about expanding our circle of compassion. We got to do that at this moment to bring as many people along as we can. And the beauty of our business is it is a diverse business, and we get to travel the world without leaving the workplace. And if we can develop an affection for one another and want for the next family what we want for our own, I think that there's a clear path towards progress and unity for us.
Yeah, and I think I think that's perfectly said. And I was in a position a couple of weeks ago where somebody said, "Hey, just so you know, this person got this view, very strong view of it," and just warned me, right? And I was like, "Whatever." And we had conversation started, and we left, and I looked at him, and I know in that conversation, I'm not saying a change of heart, but he saw my perspective, because I wasn't yelling at him in a tweet. I wasn't belittling him. one of the things I wanted to understand is why. Like, why do you think this way? Like, give me the reason. It's not like, well, you do that and I do this. I don't get in those conversations. Well, he did that, so he did. Like, somebody said something to me yesterday about, well, if it was so and so, that would happen. I was like, you know what? I don't get in those conversations. I'm just going to try to show you my perspective. If you want to be influenced by that, great. If you don't, hopefully I help. But if I didn't help your point, or maybe you don't want me, maybe you don't really see my point of view, and God bless you. But that's how this changes. That's how it changed with Martin Luther King, before him, after him. It doesn't change by shouting and screaming. It changes with that white supervisor speaking to that African-American housekeeper saying, I'd like to put you at the front desk and I'd like to make you a manager. That's where it starts. It doesn't start where everybody sees it. It starts where no one sees it.
Mhm.
Wow. Yeah, I just wanted to let those words hang for a minute. I think that's really, really an important lesson. Leon?
Like you mentioned, Anthony, the idea that we want to help others do better and provide those opportunities. That's something that we need to do. I teach a race relations class, and the interesting thing that happens with the class, I get folks that call me to say, now I'm not going to have to be on camera during the webinar, am I? Because, like, why don't you want to be on camera? Because I don't want people to know that I'm taking the class, right? Is a common theme. But one of it's
Why is
crazy.
that?
It's crazy because they don't want to let others know that they're taking a race relations class for fear that folks would think they're not in tune with race relations, or maybe they have racist attitudes, or that they haven't done a good job embracing some things.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what I hear, and so I say, okay, fine, the camera's off, and we
Yeah,
leave it at that.
It'd be exactly the opposite. Those are more
You-
cognizant of the issues, are the ones that are going to self-select and want to take the class.
Right.
It's the ones that aren't willing to take that class or dismiss the class are the people that we still need to connect with and get through to.
Exactly. And one of the things that I teach in the class is the concept, Anthony, that you just talked about, is seeing someone that's African American, to say to them, I think you can do more. I want to help you get to the front desk. I want to help you get a job in sales. I want to help you do that. I like to go back to yesterday just for a second.
Yes, sir.
I have some friends that are married, black guy, white lady,
Awesome.
right? And the white lady posted on Facebook that they said to their 4-year-old daughter, look, do you see Vice President Harris? She's biracial like you. You can grow up to be vice president one day. And their daughter said, I keep telling you, I want to be a mermaid. And
That's what you're going to say. She keeps telling you, I want to be your president.
and so the parents were like, well, we actually haven't seen any biracial mermaids, so go for it, So I thought it was kind of cute and tight.
I want to be a mermaid.
Right. I know this might seem a little irrelevant or maybe just not that big of a deal in the scheme of things, but I feel as if I've seen many more mixed couples in television commercials.
I said that this morning. To a friend of mine. Absolutely. I'm seeing it all over the place.
I feel like there's more of a concerted effort in that. Thomas, we got a question here from friend of the show, Steve Durasmo. Do African-American managers feel welcome and wanted in our industry? If no, then we are running off exceptional team members and future industry leaders.
I think the honest answer to this question is some organizations are more welcoming than others. And I think globally, we can do a better job of being intentional and making sure we welcome folks. But there's some organizations, I'd like to think we do a really good job at that. And again, top to bottom, we're not just an African-American leadership-driven organization. We have a diverse group, and I'm proud of the diversity. I'm proud to have Latino general managers, African-Americans, white Americans in positions of leadership. I think we're better when we're together.
It's insane. In 2020, there's organizations that are respected by their community, people getting awards, and from what it looks like, these companies look like really good companies because they say the right things. But there are African American minority groups that don't feel comfortable working in their organization in 2020. That's the problem. The problem is these organizations that look good, look inclusive, but when you get into the system, you get into that, they don't talk about it, you just feel it. Now, I can't imagine in 2020 what that feels like to someone that doesn't look like me. That these people, there's two things at play here that piss me off. One, that obviously is happening, but two, that no one's calling them out on it.
Leon?
It's
Leon?
interesting you bring that up. I was hired. I did a sales call on a management company, and I asked them how race relations and racial sensitivity and race conversations and diversity were within their company. And they said to me, everything is fine. Oh, everybody in our company is happy. We don't have any racial problems. We don't have any diversity problems. Everyone is happy. And so I asked the question, how do you know that? And the answer was, well, if we weren't, we have folks that with some pretty big mouths, they would say so. And so I said, let's just do something, just an academic exercise. Let's together develop a survey that you're going to give to your employees. And it's based on race relations, diversity, inclusion, questions like that. And let's see how your team members, how your employees respond. You say you're doing a good job because no one's telling you you're not. They're not calling you out on it. Let's really find out. And so we sent the survey out, got 56 point something % return on the survey, and we read the results, and it was they're not doing a good job. And all of the leaders in the company are like, well, we do this, we do that, we do. Like, well, it's not helping. Clearly, you see what your team members are saying. And I think so often folks aren't calling them out, but folks aren't speaking up about it either. Where so many managers, and particularly Black managers, are just, folks can't push the envelope and say, you're not doing right. You can do better. Some folks are just afraid to do that. Again, within some organizations, not all, but within some.
Thomas?
Yeah, I would say a real example of where you needed diversity was, this past year when you had the, George Floyd situation happen. There were a lot of African Americans within our organization that felt that the country no longer welcomed them and that their kids' lives were in danger. And I would say everybody understood that this was disruptive to the psyche of most Americans. I think African Americans feared their very safety and the safety of their children, and they needed someone to speak to them. And some of my colleagues, my white colleagues, genuinely wanted to say the right thing. They just didn't know how to address the issue. And I just think our African-American colleagues in positions of leadership were uniquely positioned for the moment because they were able to speak from the position of being parents with kids and similar concerns. And so whenever things happen throughout the world, it's having diversity in positions of leadership that can really speak to them in a compelling way. And that was necessary because, during the George Floyd situation, we were dealing with COVID and other issues.
Right.
And it was good to have at least diversity within our organization to address it.
Yeah, and that's what I find, that people don't know what to say in those situations, people that look like me. And what I say is say what's on your mind. And if you say something wrong, you'll be educated. And just make sure you take that education, because what you're going to say is not going to be something that will be offensive, probably because you're thinking about being sensitive, but you may say something that inadvertently is probably not the right thing to say. And the person you're talking to, if it's a person of color and they're engaged in the conversation, they're just going to tell you why that perspective or that what you just said is offensive. And I think people are just afraid. Doctor, did you want to respond? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. I completely agree with you. I think that many of our white Americans, we want to say something. We don't know. I think we're afraid oftentimes that we're going to say the wrong thing. And I think that we just have to put ourselves in a position where we know that it might be uncomfortable, but silence is complicit. So
Yeah, but also on the other side of that is make sure the person you're talking to is a reasonable person, because on the other side of that, the person may hold it against you and then triple down and say, you shouldn't have done this. It's like, hey man, I'm just help me here.
Right.
It's like, and it's like the conversation is so valuable. These conversations are so valuable. You see what happens when we don't talk about it. It happened on January 6th. You see what happens when we don't talk about, we don't have really important conversations.
Right. So speaking of important conversations, Leon, I'm going to ask you a question that I'm a little uncomfortable to ask, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How do you feel when people try to conflate the marches that happened over this summer that had some rioting element to it with the Capitol riots? To me, just as me, I'm disgusted by that whole notion. I can't even imagine how it must make someone like you feel.
Yes, I am disgusted when that analogy comes up. Well, they rioted back in during the summer and nobody said anything, and I'm like, wait a second, wait. No one tried to overthrow a government,
Right.
and everything that was done during the summer, all the protests that took place during the summer, was not fueled by the president of the United States. The two don't even compare. And when people bring that up, what I ask is, I throw questions back at them. I say, how many folks that were marching and protesting in the summer and early fall showed up with weapons, showed up with tools to hang someone, showed up with the attitude and verbalizing, I'm here to kill, I'm here to hang, I'm going to overthrow the government. The two don't even, I'm going to just leave it alone because you can tell I'm getting passionate about it. No, the two aren't even the same.
Yeah.
And it disgusts me when they try to do that.
And they didn't walk a Confederate flag into our Congress.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Do either of you two want to respond to that as well? I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable.
I'm not go ahead, Doctor.
no. I was going to say I completely agree, Leon, with everything that you said.
Right.
Absolutely.
I completely agree as well. I just think that I try to shift conversations back to people's kids and their own family and make a connection, my family, their family. Most parents want the same thing for their kids. If we can connect around that, then we can address much more difficult issues. And so I try to find some level of commonality and then build a relationship such that we can negotiate difference. My experience has been when I go straight to the difference, folks don't hear you.
Right. And I think that, Thomas, I need to do more of that because sometimes I don't have the patience and I'm not as articulate as you are. But one of the things I want to make sure that people take away from this, to me, of everything we said, is you walking in from a busy day and your wife crying, happy tears that a person of color is the vice president, where I was excited, I was hopeful, and I may even shed a couple of tears, but that your wife was sobbing, and it was like, we have to understand that our perspectives are different and the meaning of things have deep seated meaning for us. Like when I said about housekeepers before, I didn't know your family were housekeepers. I didn't know your father worked in the hotel business. I didn't know Leon's father was a sky cap. I just have tremendous respect for those positions just because I was brought up right. And I wouldn't say in my home, and if you watch my movie, you'll see my house was upside down sometimes. But my mom did her best. But I didn't see that because somebody's different color or somebody's different background. I saw a lot of other things, but I didn't see that. And so we've got to understand that moment from your wife's perspective. We've got to understand from Leon, from your father's perspective of seeing you successful, or Thomas, from your family saying, wow, look at him. He's building hotels. He owns hotels. Like, we've got to understand what that means. I mean, even in my family, like that, I was the first person to go to college. There's meaning there, and we've got to respect that meaning, and we've got to celebrate it.
A quick show note. He's, of course, referring to the movie Wise Gal from, I think, 2008 or 9 or something like that. And little known trivia question, Alyssa Milano is your mom. How awesome is that? So check out that movie. Doctor, we have a private chat room over here for those that you know. We don't use it often, but today we've been using it a little bit more than normal. You had a point that you wanted to bring up. Doctor?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to what he was saying about having the conversations and knowing that you might say the wrong thing and then relying on the person that you're talking to educate you. And
Right.
I think that it's important for us to remember as white allies that, you know, our Black friends and colleagues may become a little bit exhausted at some point being responsible for educating us. And there are plenty of resources that we can reach out to educate ourselves before we, you know, tap them out.
Right. That's an interesting point too. Leon, I sense that you're on the fence about that.
I understand the concept of what Dr. Kitterlin Lynch is talking about, and I have never felt overwhelmed or getting tired of or frustrated with my white friends, those that I've had to correct on issues or topics. I've never felt tired about it. I always feel that it's an educational opportunity, and when I look at conversations like this, you know, Thomas and I could have the conversation, and I don't know how far we would get having this subject, this topic, but when Glenn, Anthony, and Miranda, when you do it, it almost like it adds credibility to it that white folks are talking about a necessary topic. And so when my friends bring up issues and they ask me questions, I treat them as friends. I really don't have a problem with them doing it. So it doesn't overwhelm me. So I appreciate the opportunity to educate folks.
Excellent. Thomas.
I would just build on what Leon said. I think it's when we talk about it together. I think there's power in us being together, talking about a subject as important as this. And while Leon and myself, we may give others who look like us the confidence to have the discussion, I think when we talk about it together, we give everyone permission to have the discussion. And I think it needs to be a diverse group if we're going to make the kind of progress that I think we all want to make.
Beautiful. All right. I feel like we're ready for some final thoughts. So maybe we'll start with Dr. Kitterlin Lynch to begin our final thoughts.
Doctor,
final thought? I think she's having a delay.
Final thought? Yeah, I've had a little tech delay, sorry. Just let's all work this year to do better. We've got some great opportunities. I think especially with the rehiring of our lost positions due to COVID-19, I think our industry has an amazing opportunity to do some mindful hiring.
Beautiful. Leon?
I, again, thank everyone for the conversation, but I think everyone needs to understand that we need to continue to have it. And then it's so important that we embrace each other and look for opportunities to help others. And if I could throw a plug out there, sign up for my race relations class. I think there's some great tools and tips that will help blend things and help provide better race relations and thus opportunities, which is what we're discussing here. And thank you all for what you do. This is a valuable conversation that I hope many embrace.
how do we find your class?
Yeah.
Go to my website, leonthetrainer.net. And on the menu, you'll see a tab there for race relations training, and you can sign up there. Again, it's leonthetrainer.net.
And thank you, Leon, for bringing this important topic to us. Thomas, final thought?
Yeah, I just would say, you know, COVID has created a common crisis. And the question is, goes to the question Dr. King asked us in 1968, his last book, 1967, his last book, where do we go from here, chaos or community? As we look to ramp our industry forward, there's an opportunity to be more intentional about making certain that there's greater diversity. I think yesterday represent a glimmer of hope. It's up to all of us to make sure that hope is actualized. I'm more hopeful just as a result of being on this call with all of you. And hopefully this is the beginning of more discussions to come around this subject and other important subjects.
Thomas, outside this venue, what can people like me do?
Honestly, sometimes I think Leon and myself, we need to hear that you're interested to have the conversation. And so you all reaching out, it means a lot. It means more than words can express. And so I think to the extent that we can stay in contact, if not quarterly, I think that there's power in that. And I think if we put our minds together, we can find more opportunities to make a difference.
Right.
Thomas, you know what I just did in that
Uh-huh.
10 seconds that you mentioned the book? I just bought the book on Amazon and it's already on its way.
Good stuff. Good stuff. It's an amazing book. It's Dr. King's best book by far.
Excellent. So what I want to do is I think Thomas, we're going to be planning a trip down to DC. We'd love to have you join us as a guest. And you know what I want to do? Just talk about the hotel business, not talk about diversity, because I want to show what an awesome executive you are as well. I think that's really important to get the message
Great
across.
point. Great point.
Yeah, I've said this before, but one of the things that I worry about is every time I feature people of color or women on the show, we wind up talking about your physical attributes and not what amazing professionals you are. So it's our job here to try to help push these issues forward while also recognizing you as an amazing individual.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And I think, what the doctor said, what you said, doctor's concerned that, we're afraid that, our friends of color are tired of educating us. You just said, I'm concerned that people are going to look at Thomas as, African-American executive, not a great executive. And I think one of the things from our part, and I'm talking to myself as well, we got to stop being afraid. We got to stop being scared. We got to stop. We just got to talk. We just got to do better. And we've got to stop saying, oh, let me see. I've said plenty of things in my life that I'm like, I'm going to say it. And if that person I'm talking to is offended, they'll let me know. And very rarely, if ever, when these conversations come, is anyone offended? They're like, okay, let me tell you my perspective. And I think that's the problem, is that we're all too damn afraid to have a conversation.
Right. But again, like I said earlier, the more of these conversations we have, the easier they become and the more progress we could all make together. Leon, Thomas, Dr. Kidron Lynch, thank you so much for being here today. Can't wait to get you guys on the show and not talk about this issue and focus on what incredible professionals you are. Thank you
I
all.
want to say one other thing. I was going to say it when they left, but I'm going to say it now.
Yes.
There are people listening that probably shut us off because they're uncomfortable with the subject.
Mhm.
Okay. I would like you to turn us back on and keep listening. But if you're really not interested, don't ever turn us on for anything else. And I think that's really, your people are uncomfortable with the subject and I'm not going to, I don't want to listen to that. Then you know what? This is probably not the place you want to go to for your podcast.
Right. Well, I find it very frustrating. And I told Leon this. Anytime we focus on diversity, we get lower numbers.
I posted something, not to cut you off, I want to forget it, about Martin Luther King Day. Okay. It was the least commented and least liked of my post that week. And I think maybe the month. I have to go back and look. What? Martin Luther King's controversial?
Right. And honestly, we're going to keep doing these conversations because they're important. But every time we do this, we get like 30% less people paying attention. And we need to get through to those 30% and more. So we're going to keep at it and we're going to keep forcing this issue because together we can all make change. So again, thank you all for being here, for being so open and honest and answering our questions with humanity. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, Anthony, that was fantastic. That was fantastic.
Yeah, you heard my deep sigh. It's like it's fucking insane that we're having this conversation in 2020, and it's worse than it's ever been from when I saw it. Yes, we're getting better, but because we are talking about it more, because of social media, it is right there in the forefront for all of us to see. So I miscalculated. I thought we were a lot further along. I really did. I mean, I would have bet a lot of money on that. We were a lot further along than we are. And we are not. We're better. We're much better. But I did not think that this is where we were. I really didn't. And it's good to be out there so we can deal with it. But, when we're crying that we have an African-American as vice president, a woman vice president in 2020. We should have been crying about that in 1970. That was the first person of color. It took the 2020 to get there, and it's just that tells you how long we have to go. And I really mean that. People that find these uncomfortable or don't like this conversation, I already said how I feel.
Right. All right. So I think that this show stands on its own. I want to thank everybody for listening. Remember, get our weekly newsletter. Text the word hotel to 66866, and you'll be sure to get that. Of course, download our audio feeds, because what better thing there is to do when you're out walking the dog or taking your commute or getting that important exercise, but to listen to Anthony in your head. So check out Checking In with Anthony and Glenn on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your shows. And of course, at No Vacancy Live, or No Vacancy with Glenn Hausman. I'm forgetting the names of the feeds. Thank you so much, Maritza. Thank you for being with us all the time.
Isn't it crazy? Even that comment, it's not popular. Oh my God. Being a fair human being to other human beings is not popular, right? Isn't that, it's insane. It's absolutely, it pisses me off. And I want to kind of go back to what I said about that young lady, the poet yesterday, that when someone said, well, she is, one of many African-Americans that are really talented. Yes, there are tremendous amount of African-American talent from all walks of life. But when you find someone like, she wasn't special African-American young lady that she should be celebrated. She was a special human.
That's right.
She was a special human. What made her, she wasn't more special than a white poet. She was just more special than most poets.
Yeah, she is.
She was just more special than most poets, not more special than black kids or black young ladies. She was just friggin' incredible.
Absolutely. So incredible. She made me rethink my disdain for poetry. So there you go.
Listen, she is a superstar. She is you're going to see her, know her name. You're going to see her. She is a superstar.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate you joining us 4 days a week here, every Monday through Thursday. I do want to say, coming soon in just a few weeks, I'm going to be launching a brand new show on Friday nights with my buddy Craig Sullivan. I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be more happy hour focused. We're going to mix some drinks, do some other fun stuff, make it like the swinging 60s kind of lounge shows that are out there. We're going to be calling it Friday Night Audit, and I hope you guys could join us. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. And Anthony, remember, I've got one life. You've got one life. So blaze on, man.
I want to hold you accountable for something. You said that your friend, and I was like, wait, he only gets one friend a year. I was your friend last year. Oh, so it's 2021. You get one more friend. All right. You're allowed to have a friend.
No, he's my friend from 2017.
Oh, okay. I just didn't think you had friends, so I was shocked.
No. I have 3. You, Craig, and I'm sure there's somebody else out there. I want to apply to be my friend.
Hello. Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah.
David's your friend too.
Dave's my 2019 friend, actually.
Well, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Please.
All right, guys. See you on Monday.